Right off the bat, I'm going to start this off by saying that this is part 2 of a 2-part series on my channel in which I read my favorite books for the month of April as a little birthday gift to myself. So if you haven't seen the first video, I highly suggest you go and watch it. I'll put it in the iCard or in the description down below so you can go and check that out. But if you have seen that, welcome to part 2. Last video I read The Boy in the Striped Pajamas and The Martian, and I had great fun while doing that. In this video I'm going to be reading Call Me By Your Name and The Book Thief. But before I do that, I'm actually going to rewatch the movie for The Martian because I actually really love that movie and I haven't seen it in a hot minute, so I'm going to do that. It's been a few days. I watched The Martian, which I loved like always, but in the same day, because I didn't want to do anything other than watch movies, I also watched Knives Out, which, oh my goodness, what a movie. I feel like I'm a sucker for a good classic whodunit, and so I decided I'm gonna watch Knives Out because everyone's saying that it's really good. And it starts off just like I expected. Murdered guy, a house full of suspects, one killer among them. We got a Hercule Poirot-esque detective. Daniel Craig was fantastic in this movie, by the way. Then the movie just grows bigger and changes, and I was left like, wait, what? I'm gonna talk a little bit spoilery about this because I feel like if I don't talk about this, I'm going to explode. So if you have not seen Knives Out, mute until the poster over here goes away. Actually, I'll do you one better. Go watch it and then come back and rant with me about how awesome it was. Spoilers, 3, 2, 1, let's go. So it starts off as a classic whodunit. We got Harlem who's been killed, supposedly a suicide, but our Daniel Craig, Hercule Poirot, Benoit Blanc guy is like, nah, there's something more going on here. And so I think it's gonna follow the track of a whodunit, as in we're gonna get testimonies from all these people, we're gonna slowly figure out what happened, and at the end we're gonna get a huge reveal. But then that trope is totally subverted because we get our supposed reveal in like the halfway point of the movie, probably a little bit earlier than halfway. It was like, what? So are we just gonna spend the rest of the movie trying to keep away from the cops? But then we get a whole other reveal at the end, and Benoit Blanc gets his Hercule Poirot moment, and I'm just like, I had a feeling that Ransom had something to do with it. When he was first introduced, I was kind of like, okay, he seems like the most likely person to have done it, so maybe he didn't do it. But then as the movie kept going and as Marta and Ransom were, you know, getting chummy with each other, I was like, I don't know, there's something about Ransom that strikes me the wrong way. Especially when they get caught after the worst car chase of all time, which I loved so much. Ransom just gives up Marta so easily, he just rats her out, and I was like, that's pretty sus. And then we get that whole reveal at the end that Ransom really planned everything, and that when she switched the morphine and the other medicine, she actually was switching it back, and so Harlem wouldn't have died, but then they panicked, and like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It was so fun to see Chris Evans play a bad guy. I'm pretty sure I've only ever seen Chris Evans in Marvel movies in which he plays one very good guy, and so to see him just embrace the bad, it was so much fun. That wheel of knives, oh my goodness, it was present throughout the entire movie, and you're like, okay, at some point, one of those knives has got to be used. And then when he pulls off the knife, and I was like, oh my god. But in my head I was like, it's gonna be retractable. When he like pushes it into her, and I'm like, it's gonna be retractable, it has to be. And then I thought back and remembered to something that Harlem said in the beginning, where he was like, at one point you don't know the difference between the real thing and a stage prop. And I was like, wow, wow. And then that final shot with Marta in the house with Harlem's Bug, my house, my rules, my coffee. The score in this movie too was brilliant. I am a sucker for a good orchestral score, and this movie did it. Okay, I've been talking about Knives Out for too long, so I'm gonna move on to something else. I haven't started Call Me By Your Name yet, but I'm planning to do that today. But before I do that, I'm going to read Le Petit Prince. We're studying it in French class this year, and I have a test on chapters 1 to 15 on Thursday, and it is Monday, and I'm on like chapter 4. Granted, the chapters are pretty short, but they're also in French, so it'll take me longer to read them. So I guess I should get started. It's April 14th, and it's snowing. Because it always snows in April here. It's just a thing now. And 2 seconds later, the sun's back out. Happy April! I did my test for Le Petit Prince and I think it went well. It was a lot of questions about symbolism and, you know, what's this metaphor, what does this mean, and so it took quite a long time to do, especially because typing in French takes longer than typing in English, A, because it's a different language, and B, because there's so many accents, and so for like every other letter I had to like alt and then a bunch of numbers so that I can get one accented letter. But overall I think it went well. I'm on page 145 of Call Me By Your Name, and man, Elio is so damn thirsty. I always forget how thirsty Elio actually is. He's just like really, really thirsty. That's the answer. I think this book does such a good job of displaying the feeling of desire. That feeling when you were just completely taken with someone and infatuated with someone for the first time, that you want them so badly. You can really feel that through the words and through the pages of this book. I just feel it in my body. It like gets into me. The way that Elio describes Oliver and just how much he's infatuated with him and how much he wants to be with him. It's like, yeah, I get it. Like, I would totally want to be with Oliver too if he's as great as you're making him out to be. The writing in this book is so beautiful. It's a lot of really well-crafted, ornate phrases and really nice prose. I think it's really flowery, and while sometimes in books that can kind of take away from the story, for this book, I think it really adds to it. A, because Elio is both overdramatic and clearly, as we've established, he's thirsty, so I definitely believe that his inner monologue sounds exactly like this. And B, I think the flowery prose of it really adds to, again, that feeling of desire. I'm having fun. I'm like 50% in. I'm gonna try and read a bit more today. If I don't finish it today, then hopefully I'll finish it tomorrow. But yeah, it's so good. Spoiler alert, it's good. Maybe that's why it's one of my favorite books. I feel like that's what I'm saying about every single book that I've talked about so far. I'm just saying that it's good and I'm liking it. I'm like, well, yeah, because it's your favorite book. Moral of the story, I need to figure out how to describe things better. We finished Call Me By Your Name. Man, the ending always just hits me so hard. It's this perfect blend of bittersweet, sad, but also not sad. Oh, it just hurts so much. Now I'm moving on to The Book Thief, and I've already started reading this. Every time I go back to this book, I'm just wowed all over again by the writing, because this writing is so gorgeous. It just flows so easily and beautifully. I think the thing that really caught my attention about this book the first time I read it is that it's narrated by Death. When I read it for the first time, I'd never before read a book that was narrated by someone that wasn't like human or like maybe an animal, but to have your book narrated just by the idea of death and to have death be a character, not only is it super interesting, but it also fits so well with this story. Death is not a human, he's sort of this otherworldly being, so he kind of knows and sees things in a different way than humans would, which makes him the perfect person to narrate this story, especially seeing as the book really revolves around humanity, and humanity at its most beautiful and at its ugliest. I mean, this is a book that starts off, like on the first page, it literally said, here's a small fact, you're gonna die. And if that doesn't just give away how this book is gonna go, then I don't know what does. I love that it's narrated by Death. He just brings something more to the story that I don't think would have been there if the book had just been narrated from Liesel's point of view. Liesel is the main character. Death is able to take the big ideas and the big themes in this book and bring them to a whole new level. Spread death love, basically. I've fallen down a BTS hole. I first fell down the hole in like January or February of this year, but I don't know, man, something about this quarantine has just shoved me so far into this hole. I've spent the last 3 days just watching any and every video I could find, any music video, any like lyric translation video, any interview. Yeah, it's been a time. In other news, my birthday is tomorrow, and I'm on page 307 or like 308, something like that, of The Book Thief. Something so weird about this book that really shocked me the first time I read it was that the book just spoils you for what's gonna happen in it. And I'm not talking about like foreshadowing here or there, because it definitely does do that. I'm talking about it literally just tells you what's gonna happen. It's so strange, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like it makes sense. Because this book is narrated by Death, and Death isn't like a human. He doesn't tell stories in the way that a human would, and so he doesn't care about spoilers per se. In the book, he literally says, Of course, I'm being rude. I'm spoiling the ending, not only for the entire book, but of this particular piece of it. I have given you 2 events in advance because I don't have much interest in building mystery. Mystery bores me. It chores me. I know what happens, and so do you. It's the machinations that wheel us there that aggravate, perplex, interest, and astound me. I think that's really telling of who Death is as a character. He couldn't care less about the more trivial aspects of humanity. He doesn't care so much about the final product of something rather than the steps and the events that took place to actually get us there. And I think that's also how this book explores its themes. It definitely puts weight on those final events, but it puts even more weight on the different things that lead to that final event. Even though Death tells you like what's going to happen to certain characters, you still feel all of the emotions that you're supposed to feel for those characters when it eventually does happen. Whether that be joy or sadness or pity or like dread, you still feel all of those emotions. And I think that's because Markus Zusak does such a good job of writing his characters. Like, to me, all of these characters, Liesl, Hans, Rudy, Max, Rosa, all of these characters are so real. They're 3D, they're vivid, and they feel like people to me. So even though the book tells you what's gonna happen to them, you still feel everything you're supposed to feel for them. I love it so much. I don't know how many more ways I can express how much I love something. That's all I can say. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's so good. I love it. It's like 8 o'clock. I've got like 200 pages left of this, so I'm gonna try and finish this today. I'm so excited, but I'm also so scared because it's really devastating at the end. Why are all of my favorite books so depressing? I don't get it. Why do I like emotionally hurting myself through fictional people? I don't get it. I don't get it. So let me love you. I spent the last 15 minutes crying, so clearly I finished the book. Things that this book has to say, the way that it says them, is just, it's perfect. It's so perfect. Everything about this book is absolutely incredible to me. The characters, phenomenal. The storytelling, amazing. The themes, they hit you so hard you don't even know. Honestly, I think that if I had to recommend one book, just one book, for everybody to read, it's this one. Oh my goodness, it's so good. Here's a thing that I want. In the book, Death says that he's picked up a couple of stories here and there along the years that he keeps around, that sometimes he recounts, and that the Book Thief story was one of them. I want to know what were some of the other stories. So, Mr. Markus Zusak, if you are somehow watching this, if you've somehow found this, what are some of those other stories? I'd love to know. I will be there. I will read them over and over again, just like I've read this one over and over again. My birthday was yesterday, and I've just now got around to filming the final update for The Book Thief. Overall, I think it was a pretty good birthday, all things considered. My sister got me these earrings that were from Best Dressed X en route. I don't know if you can see them. They're these little vintage safety pins, and they're so cute. I have loved them ever since Ashley announced these, and I've just wanted them so badly, and my sister got them for me for my birthday, so I'm so happy about that. That was this video, and the video previous to this, me reading all of my favorite books. To recap really quickly, I read The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, The Martian, Call Me By Your Name, and The Book Thief. I love them all, of course, they're my favorite books. I would highly recommend all of them. If you're the one person watching this, thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye!